The Varaxian warships appeared without warning, their obsidian hulls blotting out the sun over every major city on Earth. Colonel Sarah Chen stood at the Pentagon's command center, watching as the massive vessels positioned themselves in perfect geometric formations. Decades of military training couldn't have prepared her for this moment. Multiple objects deploying from the main vessels, Colonel Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his fingers flying across the holographic display. Energy signatures unlike anything we've ever seen. The alien ships had arrived 3 hours ago, and already Earth's most sophisticated tracking systems were struggling to make sense of their technology. Sarah's jaw tightened as she studied the readings. Their defensive capabilities were beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. A harsh static filled the command center speakers, resolving into a voice that seemed to bypass their communication systems entirely. People of Earth, it resonated, each word precise and emotionless. I am High Commander Kexthor of the Varaxian Empire. Your world has been chosen for integration into our dominion. Resist, and we will demonstrate the futility of your primitive weapons. Sarah exchanged glances with General Matthews, whose weathered face remained impassive. They both knew Earth's conventional weapons, even nuclear deterrence, might be useless against this level of technology. But surrender wasn't an option. The next 48 hours became a blur of emergency meetings, failed diplomatic attempts, and mounting tension. The Varaxians remained in position, silent and threatening. When Earth's governments unanimously refused to surrender, the aliens launched their first demonstration of power. Singapore disappeared in a flash of purple energy, leaving behind only a perfectly circular crater. The message was clear: submit or be annihilated. In the aftermath of that horrific display, Sarah found herself in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, part of a last-ditch effort to find any weakness in the alien defenses. Their team had been analyzing every scrap of data from the brief skirmishes that followed Singapore's destruction. Look at this, Dr. Emily Watson, their lead physicist, called out. She highlighted a section of sensor data from a failed missile strike against one of the smaller Varaxian vessels. They're shields. They're not what we thought. Sarah leaned closer, studying the readings. The Varaxian defensive systems weren't simply deflecting attacks. They were actively predicting and countering specific types of threats. Energy weapons, explosives, even kinetic strikes, all neutralized before impact. But there was something odd about the pattern. They're anticipating our weapons, Sarah realized, the pieces falling into place. Their defensive systems are programmed to counter everything they consider a threat. But what if? She turned to Captain James Foster, their weapons specialist. What's the oldest piece of heavy artillery we still have in service? Foster raised an eyebrow. The M1 Abrams tanks, probably. But Colonel, they're practically antiques compared to. Exactly. Sarah interrupted, a plan forming in her mind. The Varaxians dismissed our technology as primitive. What if that's our advantage? They're so focused on countering what they consider modern threats, they might have overlooked our obsolete weapons entirely. The team worked through the night, analyzing data and running simulations. The theory seemed sound. The Varaxian shields were optimized against energy weapons and smart munitions, but traditional kinetic weapons might slip through simply because they weren't recognized as serious threats. As dawn broke over the Rockies, Sarah stood before a hastily assembled group of military leaders. We have a chance, she declared, but it requires us to think backwards to move forward. The Varaxians expect us to fight tomorrow's war. Instead, we'll hit them with yesterday's weapons. Operation Retrograde was born in that bunker, a desperate plan that would either save humanity or prove the aliens right about their primitive nature. As Sarah watched the sun rise, she couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Humanity's salvation might lie not in its most advanced weapons, but in the tried and true tools of wars past. The Varaxians had no idea that their greatest miscalculation wasn't underestimating human technology, it was underestimating human ingenuity. The M1 Abrams wasn't built for this, Captain Foster muttered, watching technicians modify the ancient tank's targeting systems. Operation Retrograde's success hinged on these machines, pulled from military museums and storage facilities across the country. Colonel Chen circled the tank, her footsteps echoing through the underground facility. No, but that's exactly why it might work. She paused at the main gun, running her hand along the barrel. The Varaxians built their shields to stop missiles, lasers, plasma, weapons they respect. But this is just crude metal and explosives to them. Dr. Watson emerged from behind her computer station, tablet in hand. Latest simulations confirm the theory. Their predictive shielding doesn't register projectiles below a certain technological threshold. They literally don't see them as weapons. The installation buzzed with activity as crews worked to retrofit dozens of tanks. Traditional depleted uranium rounds were replaced with specially designed tungsten core projectiles, engineered to maximize kinetic impact. The tank's hydraulics were reinforced to handle the increased recoil. A sudden rumble shook the facility. Above ground, another city had fallen to the Varaxians. They were methodically working their way across continents, their energy weapons reducing humanity's most advanced defensive positions to ash. "Test firing in 5 minutes," Foster announced over the intercom. Everyone moved to the observation bunker, watching through reinforced windows as the modified Abrams took position. The target was a salvaged piece of Varaxian hull plating, recovered from a downed scout ship. Previous weapons had barely scratched it. The tank's engine roared to life, its turret rotating with deliberate precision. Fire. The blast echoed through the chamber. The tungsten round struck the alien metal at over 3 times the normal velocity. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a screech that set teeth on edge, the hull plating cracked. Silence fell over the bunker. Dr. Watson was the first to speak, her voice barely containing her excitement. The kinetic force. It's not just penetrating their defenses. Their materials aren't designed to handle this type of impact. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They built their technology to be elegant, advanced. But sometimes, brute force has its own elegance. The next 48 hours were crucial. While the Varaxians continued their advance, a secret network of resistance cells began moving the modified tanks into position. Each cell operated independently, using old-fashioned radio communications that the aliens largely ignored as insignificant. "They think they've already won," Sarah told her team during the final briefing. "Their arrogance is our window of opportunity. But we'll only get one chance at this." The plan was simple in concept, devastating in execution. The tanks would target the Varaxians' ground forces first, their hover tanks and troop carriers. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and most importantly, hit them with weapons so primitive they wouldn't register as a threat until it was too late. As night fell over the Rocky Mountains, Sarah stood in the command center, watching red dots on the map marking Varaxian positions. Tomorrow, they would launch humanity's counterattack, not with advanced technology, but with steel, explosive force, and the raw determination of tank crews ready to fight against impossible odds. "You know," Foster said, joining her at the map, "there's something poetic about this. The aliens came expecting to fight a space-age war, but they're about to face the full fury of 20th century engineering." Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the display. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Tomorrow, we remind them why humanity survived to build all those weapons they looked down on." The facility fell quiet as final preparations were made. In the darkness, dozens of Abrams tanks sat ready, their presence a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. The Varaxians had made one critical mistake. They assumed that primitive meant harmless. They were about to learn otherwise. The first Varaxian hover tank exploded in a shower of crystalline shards and alien alloys. The modified Abrams round had torn through its supposedly impenetrable shields like they weren't there. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent. "Direct hit," Foster's voice crackled over the radio. "Their shields didn't even register the impact." Colonel Chen watched through high-powered binoculars as confusion rippled through the alien formation. Their hover tanks began rotating wildly, searching for the source of the attack. But their sensors, calibrated to detect energy weapons and advanced explosives, remained blind to the outdated threat. "All units, execute attack pattern Delta," she commanded. Across the mountain valley, concealed Abrams tanks opened fire. Each shot was precisely calculated, the tungsten rounds delivering devastating kinetic force that the Varaxian shields were never designed to stop. High Commander Kexthor's voice boomed across the battlefield, tinged with something new: uncertainty. "Impossible. Your weapons are obsolete. Our shields air." Another explosion cut him off as 3 more alien vehicles erupted in flames. The Varaxian formation broke, their elegant battle strategies crumbling in the face of brutal, primitive warfare. Dr. Watson's voice came through Sarah's earpiece. "Colonel, their shield frequencies are fluctuating. They're trying to adapt, but they can't reconfigure fast enough to recognize the threat." The battle evolved into chaos. Varaxian hover tanks, accustomed to floating above the battlefield in perfect formation, found themselves being picked off by weapons their advanced systems classified as harmless. Their return fire, while devastating, largely missed the camouflaged Abrams tanks nestled in prepared positions. "They don't know how to fight dirty," Sarah realized, watching an alien tank commander attempt to maintain formation even as his unit was decimated. They'd forgotten the basics of warfare. The Varaxian response was predictable. They attempted to elevate above the battlefield, seeking safety in altitude. But the modified Abrams tanks had been prepared for this, their targeting systems enhanced to track vertical movement. Foster's voice crackled again, switching to Phase 2. The second wave of attacks targeted the Varaxians' command and control vehicles. Without their sophisticated networks, the alien units began to falter. Their perfect formations dissolved into individual units fighting for survival. As the sun set over the battlefield, the remaining Varaxian forces retreated in disarray. The valley floor was littered with the wreckage of their advanced technology, destroyed by weapons they had dismissed as relics. Sarah stood atop her command vehicle, surveying the aftermath. "Send word to all resistance cells," she ordered. "Operation Retrograde is confirmed effective. Begin global deployment." The battle had proven what she had hoped. The Varaxians' technological superiority was also their weakness. They had evolved beyond certain fundamental principles of warfare, leaving them vulnerable to simpler, more direct approaches. In orbit, the Varaxian fleet received the battle data with growing concern. Their ground forces, equipped with technology centuries ahead of Earth's defenses, had been decimated by primitive kinetic weapons. The impossible had happened. Humanity had found a way to fight back. High Commander Kexthor stood on his bridge, watching recordings of his supposedly invincible hover tanks being destroyed by ancient human weapons. His crystalline features reflected the emergency lights pulsing through the command center. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we underestimated these humans after all." The message spread across the resistance network. The Varaxians weren't invincible. Their very advancement had created blind spots that humanity could exploit. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, there was hope. And hope, combined with human ingenuity, was a force more powerful than any alien technology. The global resistance materialized like a ghost army. Abandoned tank graveyards became arsenals. Military museums transformed into staging grounds. Humanity's obsolete weapons found new purpose in the fight against alien invaders. Colonel Chen coordinated the worldwide counteroffensive from a mobile command center. "All sectors report ready," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced. "Modified Abrams units are in position from Siberia to the Sahara." The Varaxians had retreated to fortified positions around their primary landing zones, their confidence shattered by the devastating loss of their ground forces. Their energy weapons still dominated the skies, but they could no longer operate with impunity on the ground. "Begin Operation Thunderstrike," Sarah ordered. Across the globe, coordinated attacks commenced. In the Russian steppes, tanks emerged from snowdrifts to ambush Varaxian supply lines. Through the deserts of North Africa, camouflaged units struck at alien mining operations. The jungles of South America concealed mechanized units that appeared and disappeared like phantoms. High Commander Kexthor's voice echoed through intercepted communications. These humans, they fight without honor, without proper formation. They strike and vanish. This is not warfare as we know it. That's right, Sarah muttered, watching the tactical display. We're not fighting your war. We're fighting ours. The Varaxians attempted to adapt, modifying their shields to detect kinetic weapons. But human engineers had anticipated this, developing new rounds with different velocity profiles. The aliens found themselves trapped in a cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation against weapons they had initially dismissed as harmless. Dr. Watson's team worked around the clock, analyzing captured Varaxian technology. Their entire military doctrine is built on technological superiority. She explained during a briefing. They've never faced an enemy that forced them to fight differently. The resistance grew bolder. Modified tanks began targeting Varaxian landing ships, their enhanced rounds capable of penetrating the vessel's ground-level shields. Each victory inspired more action, as humanity's old weapons proved their worth against alien technology. A month into the counteroffensive, Sarah received an unexpected transmission. The Varaxian fleet commander requested a meeting. To discuss, the message said, terms of mutual accommodation. In the command center, her team watched the message replay. They're realizing that superior technology doesn't guarantee victory, Foster observed. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. Sarah studied the tactical display, where green dots representing human forces continued their relentless harassment of Varaxian positions. Send our response, she ordered. We'll meet, but they negotiate with Earth as equals, not conquerors. The war had changed fundamentally. The Varaxians' technological advantage remained, but they had lost something more crucial, their aura of invincibility. Humanity had proven that determination, ingenuity, and even outdated technology could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. As Sarah prepared for the negotiation, she reflected on the irony of their victory. The Varaxians had come to Earth expecting to find primitive beings barely worth their notice. Instead, they found a species that turned its very primitiveness into a weapon. The age of the tank wasn't over after all. It had just found a new calling in the stars. The negotiation chamber aboard the Varaxian flagship gleamed with advanced technology. Colonel Chen sat across from High Commander Kexthor, an M1 Abrams shell casing deliberately placed on the table between them. Your species continues to confound us, Kexthor admitted, his crystalline features reflecting the chamber's light. Our analysis suggested your civilization was generations from being a threat. That was your first mistake, Sarah responded. You measured advancement by technology alone. Human ingenuity can't be quantified by your metrics. The peace talks progressed with unexpected efficiency. The Varaxians, shaken by their defeats, recognized humanity as equals rather than primitives. Their technological superiority had been balanced by human adaptability and resourcefulness. Earth's terms were clear: withdrawal of all Varaxian forces, exchange of technology under controlled conditions, and recognition of Earth's sovereignty. In return, humanity would share their unique approach to warfare, the ability to find unconventional solutions to overwhelming challenges. Perhaps, Kexthor mused, studying the shell casing, true advancement lies not in abandoning the old ways, but in knowing when to employ them. The withdrawal began immediately. Varaxian ships ascended from Earth's atmosphere, their once threatening presence now a reminder of humanity's triumph. But this wasn't just a military victory. It was a validation of human persistence and creativity. In the aftermath, Sarah stood at the Pentagon's new Interstellar Defense Division. Hybrid tanks rolled past, combining human engineering with carefully adapted Varaxian technology. They represented the perfect balance: human ingenuity enhanced by alien advancement, rather than replaced by it. Dr. Watson joined her, holding the latest analysis of Varaxian shield technology. "They never expected to learn from us," she said. "Now their entire military doctrine is being reevaluated." The war had taught both species valuable lessons. The Varaxians learned that true strength lies not in technological superiority alone, but in adaptability and respect for fundamental principles. Humanity learned that their greatest asset wasn't their technology, but their ability to think differently when faced with overwhelming odds. As Sarah watched Earth's new defensive fleet take shape, combining restored Abrams tanks with Varaxian hover technology, she reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by matching alien technology, but by proving that innovation comes in many forms. The M1 Abrams, once considered obsolete, now stood as a symbol of human ingenuity throughout known space. Sometimes, the best way forward is to look back. The age of human innovation had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.